accept the recording there. I'm just going to offer a word of introduction, which is that being a good Jew, foods in my life have a lot of special meaning, whether it's just gathering the family around the table or celebrating holidays. So I decided to try to take this pan and turn it into a kind of American flag made of summer fruit. So I'm going to do a corner, but you don't need to do it this way, right? A corner where I'll put the blueberries and I'll try to move the strawberries to make stripes, certainly at the top and the bottom, and see if I can make some other stripes with the apples being a layer underneath. And the color does come through a little bit to make a little bit of an American flag. Again, completely unnecessary, but just my way of making cooking a little bit more interesting, filled with symbolism for July 4th in particular. And so I hope that you enjoy this experience. If you have questions along the way, please interrupt me. I am going to make a couple changes from the listed recipe to kind of make it extra special. The first of which is rather important. So if you already preheated your oven, you need to raise the temperature to 375. If you did not preheat your oven, now is a good time to turn it on and preheat it to 375. Many apple or fruit crisp recipes say 350, but what ends up happening is it takes a really long time for them to get soft and bubbly in terms of the liquid kind of popping up. And then you end up with a thicker crust. And I like my crust a little bit more melty. So we're gonna cook at a higher temperature so that the fruit will kind of soften faster and the colors will come up. Everyone with me?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get started with buttering our pan. You're gonna end up using a stick and a half of butter later. So you can either use some of the other half, or it won't really actually do any damage to use the half stick to actually butter your pan. The idea is gonna be to get the bottom and get up the sides a good inch and a half. I have a little piece of butter left in the fridge, so I'm gonna use that. So really just sure you have a little bit of butter showing, and I know these pans are designed for poultry, so they have all kinds of grooves and crevices, so just see if you can get it mostly to cover. It's not that important because you're going to be scooping out, and the liquids will also help the crisp kind of move from the pan to your spoon or plate. All right, so I don't know if you can tell, but there's like a little layer. And the next thing would be to take care of our apples. So if you, like me, leave the peels on, make sure that they're washed. And if you are going to peel your apples, personal preference either way, if you're peeling your apples, go ahead and start peeling now. And then we're gonna cut our apples and I'll show you how I like to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna move the camera so you can see what I'm doing instead of seeing me. Let's see if I can get this to, there we go. Okay, so Where's my knife? I mentioned to our early arrivals, I like to use a 4-cup measure. Some of you may have a Pyrex version of this in your house. This is easier for me, but totally like a bonus. This way I'm gonna put my pieces until I get to the 3-cup level, but you can easily chop, measure into a cup, right? And put it into a bowl, you know, like this, right? But again, for ease of use, I'm just using one of these. So I chop both sides of the core, or all 4 sides, I guess, and just, I guess I waste a little bit there. And then what I aim for is something like 1/2-inch pieces. So I'm gonna cut my, what do you call it? My sort of half in, right, maybe a little less than 1/2 inch. So 1, 2, 3 slices there, and then 3 this way. Nothing too precise, but it works. You might find you want your pieces to be a little smaller, but it's personal preference. You're thinking bite size. And when it comes to these smaller end pieces, I cut them in half. Depends on the apple too. And then again, in thirds. So that 1 apple got me like 1.5 cups. So this second apple is pretty big. I might get all the way to 3, but I might need the 3rd apple. Yeah, no, well, I might make it with these end pieces. There's something about Granny Smith and the way it cooks down, especially with the sugar and the lemon juice. That just gives it special flavor. But if I'm eating apples, I'll tell you, Honeycrisp are my favorite. Anyone else have a favorite kind of apple that they like?
Empire, Cortland.
Cortland, yummy.
Yep. All around apple.
So I don't know if you can tell, but I'm a little bit shy of the sort of 3 cup mark with just my 2 apples. And that's always an excuse to taste what you're eating. I'm a big fan of sampling, as long as you wash your hands along the way.
Me too.
Also, I have children who often show up while I'm cooking. And so it's good to have a few extra pieces. And on the apples, I would not necessarily go overboard, but I would definitely make sure you have, you know, your 3 cups all the way. The blueberries we can go under, and the strawberries is a little bit of a, depends on how you cut them. I'm going to do a little bit more Granny Smith here. Okay. So my apples are ready. How's everybody doing?
Good.
Still chopping.
Okay, go for it. I am going to start washing my strawberries because I didn't do that before. And it takes about 1/2 pound. No, it takes close to a pound, maybe 3/4 of a pound of strawberries. So, you know, we're going to take our time and we're going for big chunks, right? So some strawberries you won't cut at all, and some you're going to cut in half, and some, you know, it just depends on how big the strawberry is. but again, you can like look at your pieces of apple as a kind of guide.
Also, if you purchase kits from us, your strawberries are slightly cut up already because the volunteers needed to do that to fit them in the bags.
Are they washed, Becky?
They are washed, yes.
Thank you. That was what I was just waiting
You're
for.
way ahead of me.
Yeah.
Just wondered, just wanted to make sure.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Never know.
And similar to the story with the apples, I happen to have a smaller one of those cups that holds 2. And we're going to do 2 cups of strawberry pieces. From what I understand, June is peak strawberry season, and the closer you get to the end of June, the better they are. So, you know, if you want to adapt this crisp to use whatever fruits might be seasonal, if you were further south, definitely I would recommend peaches. And now that Wegmans can get things from anywhere, you can, you know, think about getting those Georgia fuzzies. They will cook faster than the apples, so I would go back to the 350 degrees and, you know, keep the baking time as it's listed. I've done this with, what other fruits have I used? Peaches, cherries are good too, but they're annoying because of having to de-pit them all. There's something about the strawberry blueberry with the apple base that's just right. My 13-year-old son ate 3/4 of a pan over the last 2 days by himself.
Rabbi Jeremy,
Yes.
have you ever halved the recipe?
Interesting. No.
Well, I will let you know how it works out.
Okay. Please do.
Because I gathered when I added up all the measurements that it was for a large quantity.
Uh-huh.
And I wanted it like for 2 or 3. And when I did my
right.
apple crisp, you know, I have learned how to adapt it in half. So I'm making half.
It'll totally work that way. The
Yeah.
problem that I have had is going the other direction, which is that when I use an 11 by 17, which would be thinner,
Yeah.
I don't have enough topping with this recipe. So I end up having to this recipe doesn't have, it's hard to 1.5 the topping recipe. So I end up making double, and then, you know, I'm eating butter and sugar all by itself because it tastes so good with all the extra topping. But your idea is really good. If you have like ramekins, right, you can make even individual little crisps and however much you end up using, it's gonna be great.
So I'm not using the strawberries and blueberries, but I'm adding more apples. So would it be then 4 cups of apples?
Say that again.
I'm not using the blueberries and strawberries. So would then I have 4 cups of apples?
So you're aiming for 6 cups of fruit.
So I'll have to have more than 4 cups.
Yes, or like I can't remember who it was, or like whoever was speaking just before, who I can't see on my screen, you can do half the recipe. It'll either be thin in this pan, or if you have a smaller pan, you can adapt. Again, you can just, adapt your quantities.
I have a smaller one, which I've used 2 smaller ones. It works out just fine for like a half a recipe of a apple crisp.
Okay, so I have my strawberries, and now I'm gonna wash my blueberries. In this case, I'm just gonna fill a 1 cup measure with my 1 cup of blueberries. And that should give us our, let me see if I can do this, our red, white, and then it'll be blue. Again, on the blueberries though, I would go easy. Like don't overfill your cup, because it'll overwhelm the corner, or even if you're mixing it up. Okay, so you can see there's some space left in my cup of blueberries, and that's just fine. Where'd my towel go? All right. Let me know when you're done with your fruit, and we will move on.
Done?
I'm done with the fruit.
We're ready too.
Okay, so the Warners are ready.
I'm ready. I'm ready.
Sue's ready. And Harriet, did you say you were ready with your fruit?
I am ready. I am.
Okay.
I'm ready.
So the next step is we're going to create the kind of sauce, if you will, that's going to add flavor to the fruit and bring it together. 2-step process to this. So you're going to want a good sized bowl. Because the fruit is going to end up in it, in addition to our sugar and cornstarch. So we're going to take half a cup of sugar. The half cup measure is going to be our friend today. I miss using the bags of sugar where you'd have to like scoop it up, but somehow these containers just go better in my house. Okay. Here's my half a cup of sugar. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And I'm not going to do the trick where you like slide a knife over. It's not an issue of being particularly precise, because not all of this is actually going to end up in the dish. We're just trying to give a little bit of material, I forget exactly what the chemical property is, that's going to absorb some of the liquid so that it doesn't become soupy. You can use a whisk. I like using just a fork for this particular thing, is just to mix that sugar and cornstarch together so that the sugar kind of is even looser because of the starch kind of, again, absorbing any moisture and keeping things separate. Okay. And then we are ready for, that secret, not on the recipe, printed version, a half teaspoon of cinnamon. Especially if you're doing apple, it needs a little bit of extra flavor. If you're going like a peach and berry route, then the cinnamon's not necessary. It might even actually change the flavor too much, but with apple, there's nothing quite like that cinnamon flavor being added in. And it goes well also on the strawberries and blueberries because it's pretty subtle here. So you can see all mixed in, slightly brown, but barely, and a good texture. All right, then I start with adding the apples. So once you have your sugar, cornstarch, and cinnamon, I would add the apples. Okay, and this is where things get a little tricky. I think the apples need this topping the most, so I use my tablespoon measure again to get the requisite tablespoon of lemon juice. I know fresh squeeze would be better, but the real lemon left over from Passover, still good. And then I like to use a slotted spoon, so the juices kind of flow. Start to mix that up before we even add the strawberry or the blueberry.
Right.
This way the apples get the most of that flavor and texture. The strawberries will take care of some of that. Okay, once you've mixed it up a little bit, I don't know if you can see, right? It's kind of goopy. That's a good time to add the strawberries. I don't actually add the blueberries until I've taken out the fruit, because there'll be enough of the sauce, the sugar mixture, there'll be enough left for the blueberries after we move all of this out of the bowl. Just getting those strawberries nice and coated. Okay, and let's move this out of the way. Now I'm ready to transfer into my container. So the slotted spoon, again, it's going to allow some of the liquid to stay in the bowl for the blueberries. And to the degree that I can, I try to keep the strawberries, on top of the apples, but it's really meant to be mixed. We need those apples all around as the base. And I'm going to get my hands dirty with the strawberries in a little bit. Again, you can just mix it all up if you want, though, and have it be a tricolor collage instead of a pseudo-American flag. See, plenty of liquid left in the bowl. And I'll put the blueberries in it. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is get strawberries off the bottom so that the apple really is our kind of crust. And I'm going to pick this corner here to be where the blueberries will end up. So just one thin layer of apple. Looks like I'm getting a nice stripe of strawberry there. And I'll start another one here. I have some extra apple so I can kind of make a white stripe here. And red stripe. Insert my white there. Here. If you're doing what I'm doing, I hope you washed your hands before. We're learning with COVID to be really careful about how we wash our hands. It's good for all of us all the time.
I was just gonna say, good hygiene all year round, COVID
Yes.
or not.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so. I can put some strawberries there. Again, I'm just playing. This is totally unnecessary and still fun. And it will take some imagination to truly see it as, you know, a quasi-American flag, but why not? Okay. So, all right for me. I'm gonna, while my hands are still kind of dirty, stir those blueberries around and then lay them in the corner. And maybe a little too many. Get this shape. No, no, we're good. And then I do take the extra sauce and drip it on the apple rose, but it can go anywhere. Strawberries too. Okay. We're 2/3 of the way there, apart from the actual baking. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Hey,
I'd like to hear that. Next up, a smaller bowl, but I will tell you that it's good to get a head start on the next item. So when you're ready, we got to melt all this butter. It's a stick and a half. It's a lot of butter. I like to cut it into like more or less tablespoon pieces and microwave 10 seconds at a time. And I tried to find some great Jewish teaching because, you know what, I'm gonna do this for a second. Some great Jewish teaching on letting the process carry out. So the best I could come up with, pardon me for being rabbinic, is, you know, God created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. And there's this midrash that God actually planned for Adam and Eve to be kicked out of the Garden of Eden so that God could bring some of Eden into the actual world. That Eden is too perfect and that humanity's job is to finish creation. So when we melt the butter, again, I do 10 seconds, check on it, 10 seconds, check on it. When there are kind of little floating islands, but mostly it's all melted, then I let it sit. I let the warmed, melted butter finish melting instead of doing the work all the way instead of having the microwave do everything, because microwaves are pretty cool, and you might even say a divine invention. But melting butter we used to have to do on the stovetop, and even there you might have let the heat of the pan finish the melting. So let's let the butter do the work. And we say lahavdil. I by no means am trying to imply that we are God, but as the God figure in this metaphor, we're going to start the process but not finish it, and let the butter finish it on its own. Okay. There's the butter, and here's the butter knife. So don't need to be precise. You don't have to measure with the label, but just, something like tablespoon chunks. And then in your microwave, 10 seconds at a time. If you want, you can do stovetop and just on low. The thing is, in terms of our goal, we want the butter to not be hot when we add it to the oats and the flour. So the one thing I like about the microwave and letting it finish is that it gets it warm, it melts it, but it gives it a chance to cool. All right, so it's in there for 10 seconds. I'm going to go back again. The first 2 times you don't even need to look. You know it needs more.
Now, when you're doing peaches, do
Yeah.
you peel them?
Do I peel the peaches? It depends on who is going to be eating it. So I don't think you need to, but some people have like a little bit of an allergy, and that tends to be to the fuzz. So like my wife and one of my kids has trouble eating peaches because of that. So I would peel it for their sake. And again, it just means that the actual fruit is going to cook faster if it doesn't have that peel on it, because the peaches will be even that much softer. All right, I'm going back for a third 10-second round. The butter is starting to melt, but it's going to take a little bit longer. And as soon as it's like on its way, then we're going to do our oats and flour and brown sugar, my favorite. Okay, so
This is already.
this is, let me tip this down. This is my butter at 5 rounds of 10 seconds. It's probably going to need another 10 seconds to get those big chunks into little islands. Okay, so I'm going to do one more round, but that'll probably be it. I have found if I do it too fast, if I do like 30 seconds at one time, it gets bubbly and starts to break down the butter into different fats, and I don't like that. Okay, so now you can see there's like a few little itty bitty.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna let the warm butter finish that off all by itself. It's gonna sit right here.
Mine's ready to bake.
What's better to bake?
No, mine's ready today. I did the thing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's fabulous. Thank you.
Absolutely. My pleasure. I love this. So now I'm going to take my oats, okay, and it's 1.5 cups. So I'm just using my half measure again and doing 1, 2, Great, that's 1.5 cups of oats. And then we're going to need a cup of flour. Actually, there's a lot of oats left on this one, so I'll use different measure. You don't need to pack this flour. It's better if it's a little bit loose, but however you get it out of your bag, good for you. We will want to pack our brown sugars, just the flour. We don't need that extra density because this is for the topping. Okay, 1/2 cup of packed brown sugar. I told Becca that I am partial to dark brown sugar. I just think it kind of makes things a little bit sweeter. It's totally in my head. So you can use light brown sugar. It's a nicer color, the light brown. But I can't, this is me, like dark brown. There's something magical about seeing sugar that's of that darker color. And so I'm gonna pack my 1/2 cup measure, I'm gonna pack with dark brown.
Also, for anyone who got the kits, I noticed my brown sugar was already packed pretty well on its own. So my tip for that is if you put it in a microwave safe bowl and you dampen a paper towel and put it in on top and just heat it at like 30-second intervals, it'll soften right up for you.
Thank you, Becca, because mine is like a brick. So
Mine was a brick too. I'm sorry about that, but it's totally soft now. It just took a couple tries in the microwave and adding a little more water to that paper towel.
Yeah, I knew there was a way, but I didn't have the patience or the time, so I used my brown sugar.
Gotcha. Sorry about that.
Don't apologize.
I will say that Becca's trick is on the box, so it's a real deal. That's the solution for keeping our brown sugar. And the other thing about brown sugar is I always I'm gonna let it go be a little bit above, even though it's packed, right? And in there.
Jeremy, I actually
storing your own brown sugar, it is best to keep it airtight, so I keep mine in a Ziploc.
I actually had a question for you about that. I got the brick as well, so I just pulled ours out, but the only one we had was Swerve, which is the replacement. Is it going to impact anything?
What are you using as the replacement?
Swerve brown sugar, like a substitute, kind of like Truvia.
Oh, no, it shouldn't. I mean, it should be fine. Yeah, I'm not worried about that. We haven't tried it yet, but there's this like monk fruit in the raw, and we have Swerve. And I'm a big believer in trying all that stuff, so give it a try.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, and again, you could use a whisk, but I'm going to use my fork from before to try to kind of just mix this up a little bit. So that I'm not looking at big clumps of the brown sugar, especially if it was hard. And so that the oats and flour mix up with each other. You can also at this stage, especially if you used unsalted butter, which I did, I used unsalted butter, add the 1/2 teaspoon of salt. If you used salted butter, don't add salt. You have plenty already.
Everything from Temple was unsalted, which is there is salt with it.
Oh, thank you, because I messed up with the salt and added the whole thing instead of having it.
Aha.
I did that with something else too, but that shouldn't really affect it. I added more vanilla too, a little more vanilla.
Yeah, well, more vanilla I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
Salt is a little tricky. Luckily, you're not doing a salt and baking soda combination.
Yes, correct.
That's a chemical reaction. This is just flavoring.
Yeah.
So you'll put more ice cream on. Whipped cream when you serve.
Yeah, because we're going to be having a dairy dinner, so this will work.
Yes. It was not on the ingredient list to serve with ice cream, but and it tastes fine without it, but why not add a bit of vanilla? Okay, so I have my nice mixture here of oats, flour, sugar, and salt, but I have not yet added the vanilla, and I did not add the butter. I'm going to add vanilla now, and you'll see it starts to clump a little bit to mush. We're adding a teaspoon, so I'm going to use my half teaspoon from the cinnamon. Do 1, 2, and I did extra. It's okay to have a little extra vanilla. When I make French toast, I add vanilla. And I learned this trick. You ready for a totally different trick that's not about apple crisp or fruit crisp? A drop, like just a tiny amount of almond extract, unless someone has a nut allergy, in your French toast batter in the egg mixture, along with the vanilla extract. That little bit of almond, it adds just the right additional flavor to make your French toast extra special. If you do have an allergy, you should probably ask when you eat out if they add any, just in case. Okay, so you can't even tell that I added the vanilla. And now I'm ready to add the butter. Okay, so I'm gonna just pour in a little at a time. That way I get to kind of spread it around. And put the butter where it's dry. The batter is very dry. Well, now I've got it all in there, so I'm just going to go the rest of the way. A bit pasty, a little thick, definitely not oatmeal. And as you mix in the dry with the wet, it will become like a giant paste, a thick, thick paste. You can see I still have some white spots where the flour is, and I'm going to mix a little bit longer because that butter is in there. It should moisten all my flour and oats and sugar. And yeah, so now it's all mixed in. There's a little bit of dry stuff around the edges, but I'm okay. How's everybody doing?
Good, good.
Yeah, that looks good, Becca.
Yes.
Okay, and so when you're ready, start to take your, oops, I gotta put this back down. Start to take your crumble topping and put a layer on top of your fruit, right? Just a little at a time. You'll have enough in this size pan to pat it down and kind of spread it out, but just, you know, put some here, put some there, put some everywhere. Pretend you're Dr. Seuss. There's no green eggs and ham here.
That's a good thing.
Keep adding this layer. You might find a spot or two where there was some more flour and sugar that needs to get wet. Don't worry about it. If you still have stuff in the bowl to stir in, go ahead. Otherwise, just throw it in the pan, and the butter in the topping will do the work for you. The other thing about doing this topping is however much, we're tempted to actually like make the topping top everything. And like, I don't know, sometimes my perfectionism comes through and I think, oh, I have to like cover every bit of fruit. And this is the opposite, because when that fruit gets hot enough to bubble, you want the juices to kind of show up so you can get some of the color. So it's okay to leave some holes. In fact, if you do make a nice thick layer, go back and kind of poke some holes. And even then, you still might have a whole lot to work with. I still have a bunch in my bowl. You don't have to use it all. That's the other secret. No one's making you add all this butter and sugar to your dessert. So a little thin over here. And
the leftover goes good on plain yogurt, Greek yogurt, just a little bit to mix in.
oh, I like the way you think.
Yeah, tastes good. And the Greek yogurt on the, instead of ice cream works too.
Ah, now you're talking.
Because when you make yogurt, you put fruit and vegetables, you put fruit in it,
Right. So I'm going to turn it so you can see
the
the
parfait, so.
So here's my blueberry corner, and that way my children who don't like blueberries will still eat from the other area. But it's also like the American flag. You can sort of see the blue. You can see a little bit of red strawberry. I ended up with about that much, very little extra, but if I wanted to, I could throw it on.
So,
And hopefully your oven is ready. Okay. And if your oven is ready, then you can put this in. The recipe says for 20 minutes. Oh no.
30 to 35.
30 to 35, right. So that should be at 375. 30 should be plenty. But check on it. You're looking to see the juices from the fruit bubbling up. I'll be honest and say that however nice it is for the topping to have that, what do they say? A light golden firm to the touch. It doesn't get that gold. It's really hard to tell. The longer you leave it in, the juicier the fruit will get, but the harder the crust will get. So I would not aim for like being able to see the gold. I would aim for the fruit to be bubbling, and that's how you know it's ready. And the other key is don't serve it right away, because if you do try to scoop while it's still very bubbly, you kind of lose some of the texture. So give it a chance, 10-15 minutes to cool before you try eating it. I'm going to put mine in the oven, and then I'm going to turn around and show you pictures of what the finished product looked like when I did a test run. So I'm coming around to the oven side of my kitchen. All our cabinetry. That's the computer I sit at when I'm doing Zooms with Bethel. And into the oven goes the crisp. Minutes. All right, so now while that is baking, here I'll turn the light on. Ooh la la. Let me get it ready to show you the photos. I was going to try to actually hold up the actual crisp, but my 13-year-old was like, "Can I eat it now? Can I eat it now?" And this is like days ago. So if I can, here we go. All right, so Becca, do I have sharing ability? Yes. No? So you can see the, along the edges, you can see the fruit has kind of come through. The blueberries are in the bottom left corner. And I have, strawberry definitely on the edges and sort of in a little bit of a stripe, but not very clearly coming through. And again, I over baked this one in order to get some of that brown or golden tone. And all it did was make the crust thick. But that being said, so let me show you. Whoa, yes. That's, okay, here we go. So now this is,
Very good.
no, Pinterest. I didn't want to pin this. Oh, yeah.
Looks good.
Yes, I got.
Pretty good. Hold on. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can fix this. I don't know what's going on.
While he's fixing that, I just want to take a moment to
Excuse me, it's beautiful. Looks great.
Yes. Yeah.
to let you guys know that our next Bake with Bethel in July, I believe it's July 22nd, is going to be chocolate truffles, and Lindsay from Laughing Gull Chocolates, which is a local kosher Jewish chocolatier, is going to be leading that one. So make sure to stay tuned. And Sarah's also going to send this recording out tomorrow. And if you have any photos, we would love if you would share your photos of your finished product with us, because it's just fun. And back to you, Jeremy. Thank you.
I have to add something to Becca's plug for next month. The Jewish Valentine's Day, we call it Tu B'Av, which actually, for those of you who know, and I think there's some of you on this Zoom know what I'm talking about, it's a Sadie Hawkins Day, not a Valentine's Day. So a Sadie Hawkins Jewish style day is going to be actually the following Saturday. So to make your chocolate covered strawberry or whatever else 2 days before the day of love is like, very romantic and a great way to get started. And if there's not someone to express that love to, do it for yourself. I mean, we made it through this pandemic. We're still like at the finish line. Have some chocolate. Here is, again, that picture that I was trying to show you of the baked and served. So you can see the strawberry loses a little bit of its color. The blueberry turns purplish, and the apples absorb all of those colors too. But it just comes together deliciously. And I hope when you take yours out of the oven and let it cool, I don't want to find out anybody ate it right away, and you let it cool, whether or not you put ice cream on top, I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you make this again with different fruits or the same fruits, but mixed up, because you're not trying to do this right before July 4th. And that you, again, enjoy all of what this was about. I'm glad to have been here with you.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, it's so great. Thank you so much. It's fabulous. Thank you.